Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, I'm throwing caution to the wind, and we're going to be running triple Hyper Beam in the Championship Series Cup. Now, it goes without saying, this is never a team you should use if you care about your elo. I definitely did end up going a little bit negative with it, but the goal of the team was just to land as many Hyper Beams as I possibly could. Now, this team features Shadow Milotic on the lead, with, of course, Hyper Beam, Licky as the safe switch, and Quick Attack Furret as the closer, with all three team members using Hyper Beam. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we're off to a bit of a scary start, leading Shadow Milotic into Shadow Beedrill. Now, Shadow Beedrill is a very scary Pokemon. My opponent ends up banking energy and safe switching into their own Milotic. Now, typically Milotic runs Wrap, but I have a nasty surprise for my opponent as Shadow Hyper Beam lands, nearly picking up the one-hit KO. Their Milotic is going to land the Wrap, and I send in Licky to get the rollout farm down and get an energy head start. My opponent now brings in their own Licky, but they are going to be behind by a rollout. My opponent doesn't build up to any big moves, so I'm more than happy to let this go, because even though I already Hyper Beamed once, I'm going for a Hyper Beam number 2. Hyper Beam is going to connect once again, and so far we're 2 for 2 on Hyper Beams. And just like that, my opponent has lost almost their entire health bar on Milotic and on the Licky. I look to overfarm with Licky. Body Slam will easily be knocking out my opponent. I try and go for a catch, but it's a simultaneous switch, Shadow Milotic into Shadow Beedrill. Now, this is where things could get a little bit complicated, because my Furret does not have Swift. If I have Swift, this is a very straightforward path to victory, but I don't. I'm on Brick Break Hyper Beam. I send in the Furret, no shield, calling the Fellstinger bait, and even though I don't have Swift, I'm just going to be spamming out Brick Break. Brick Break is double resisted, but my opponent doesn't know that I have Swift, and they end up putting up the shield. That works really nicely for me, because now my quick attacks are going to be hitting even harder. Beedrill goes for another move, I switch into the Licky looking for the snipe, and my opponent does make a nice catch onto their own Licky. But the damage is already done, as Beedrill will not get the farm down. Licky had too much HP remaining. We get the Body Slam, knocking out the Beedrill, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a very tricky lead, Shadow Milotic into Spidops. Now, unfortunately, as the Shadow Milotic, Spidops, I believe, does get a Bug Bite breakpoint, meaning that their Bug Bites do hit substantially harder. I'm able to connect with the Aqua Tail. My opponent will fire off the lunge, but even as the Shadow Milotic, I should have enough HP to survive the lunge, save the Aqua Tail for later, and then pivot into Licky. Licky will fire off the Body Slam. My opponent is going to save the Spidops and make a nice catch onto their own Licky. Now, in this matchup, you already know what comes next. I'm farming up, and I'm just going straight for the Hyper Beam. Looks like that was a charge attack priority tie here as well. Hyper Beam into the Licky does not KO. They hang on with 1 HP remaining, and that's going to let them land an Earthquake. Oh, it turns out it was more than 1 HP. They actually survived 2 rollouts there. Licky is so bulky, and they reveal their final Pokemon to be Shadow Drapion. Drapion will be chipped with the Body Slam. I switch into Shadow Milotic, and I'm just looking to ramp up the pressure. I do not want to concede farm downs here, so my opponent is going to leave with a decent amount of energy, but they're down a shield, and that's very good for me when I'm trying to win in this endgame with Furret. Furret will hit the field. Drapion, it's always a tough call to make, whether they full send or go for the bait. I shield, I end up shielding an Aqua Tail bait, and that really does not feel great. But I'm doubling down, double shielding Furret. I shield 2 Aqua Tail baits. That is not ideal, and now I'm going to start spamming out Brick Breaks. They're low enough that Hyper Beam is not going to be needed in this endgame. They're now debuffed. They wait the turn to ensure no catch, and that means I'm going to be taking quite a lot of damage here. They should switch, so I send out Licky. I'm too healthy. I could have made a Body Slam, and that forces them to fire off a lunge. Lunge will take the KO. I send in Furret, and I'm going to need to go for a Brick Break farm down to exit with enough energy to outpace the Drapion. So I Brick Break, get the farm down. It's going to be close. Can I survive the Poison Stings? Yes, I can. We exit 1 off the move. We have the Brick Break. Down goes Drapion, and we're able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a very rough lead, Shadow Milotic into Kingdra. With the standard Milotic moveset, this lead matchup would be very good, but because I don't have Wrap, this matchup is actually terrible. My Dragon Tails can do some decent damage, but I'm stuck in an awkward spot. Do I fire off a Hyper Beam and waste all my energy on a Kingdra that's already approaching red HP, or do I throw double resistant Aqua Tails? I choose neither. I bank the energy, safe switch into Licky Licky. My opponent banks energy and then sends out a Frostlass, and this is awful. Frostlass double resists everything I can throw here, but my opponent still respects a potential Earthquake. Now that they've seen Hyper Beam, they know that they do not have to respect any more of my charge attacks. The question is, can I make it back to the Hyper Beam? It looks like I can. Hyper Beam is going to be double resisted, but will add up. Hyper Beam is going to land. I switch in my Milotic, trying for the snipe, but my opponent reads me like a book. They anticipate that I can't stay in to give up the farm down. They fire off the triple axle blind, and that play pays off as I'm forced to burn a shield. Aqua Tail is going to take the knockout. In comes Kingdra. Kingdra will be able to secure the KO with the Swift. And unfortunately for me, I'm down a shield. In comes Furret, it's Spidops in the back, and I have one win condition. The win condition is this. I'm gonna be full sending the Hyper Beam. Furret going for the Hyper Beam. Do they respect it? They do respect it! And unfortunately, we have to immediately resign the match. Hopping into the next game, picking up a very nice lead, Shadow Milotic into Frostlass. My opponent safe switches into Shadow Drapion, and Milotic is going to do quite well here. I decided to put up an early shield because I think it's very unlikely the Aqua Tail bait a Pokemon that's as bulky as Shadow Milotic, so I'm able to get the shield call right, and now I can start spamming out these Aqua Tails. Shadow Aqua Tail lands, look at the damage output from Milotic, and I'm already at Aqua Tail number 2. Shield comes up from the Drapion, in comes Licky Licky. Licky Licky will get hit with a crunch, and my opponent's switch timer should now be up, so they will be able to bail out of the matchup, and they send in the Frostlass. Licky Licky farming up. Unfortunately, I can't quite make the Hyper Beam, so I will just settle for the Body Slam. Either way, both are double resisted. My opponent, no shields, and they end up firing off energy. So they must think that I went for a bait and that I still do have the ability to damage them because they do throw energy. I send back in my Milotic. If they're on double ice, I don't have to respect this, but on the off chance they're on Shadow Ball, I do, and it ends up being an Avalanche. So they are on that cool double ice moveset. I fire off Aqua Tail at the Frostlass. Frostlass is going to be no shielding. They get KO'd. In the back is Dubwool, and I send in Furret. Now this is a complicated endgame. My opponent knows that I can hit for super effective damage with Brick Break, but obviously Brick Break would not be enough to secure the knockout. So I'm going for broke here. Last time it got shielded, I'm sending Hyper Beam once again. It connects. Dubwool, no shields. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, and we get a pretty decent lead, Shadow Milotic into Dragalge. This is another matchup that would be substantially improved if we had Wrap, but this matchup is a lot better than the matchup against Kingdra because Dragalge only single resists Aqua Tail. I shield up, they full send the Outrage, I accidentally go way over 100 energy, first time using Milotic, and I fire off the Aqua Tail to secure the knockout. I still have quite a lot of energy. My opponent sends in Spidops. I bank energy, and I pivot into Licky Licky. Licky Licky will get a Body Slam off onto the Spidops. This is very helpful damage. Body Slam is going to land. Spidops pivots into Spiritomb, and this is so bad. The good news for me, however, is I can still threaten an Earthquake even if I don't have it. So I build up to Earthquake energy, and they just don't shield. This is so bad. I farm back up again, hoping that at the very least they'll shield a second time. They just don't shield at all, and this is an absolute nightmare. Spiritomb is just the absolute nemesis of this team. Back in comes Milotic, and I fire off Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail into Spiritomb is going to be shielded. I throw the Dragon Tail, and I get outpaced. And unfortunately, that is going to cost me this game. I shield up the Rock Tomb. I predict that they pivot into the Spidops, but unfortunately for me, I don't really have a good way of getting through Spidops' remaining health. Spidops is in a very awkward health range where I don't really want to throw a Hyper Beam. I'm forced to go for the Brick Break, but Brick Break is just really not going to do much of anything. And unfortunately for me, there's just no way out as Furret is going to get knocked out as my opponent goes for the Rock Tomb. In comes Milotic, and Milotic gets bug bitten down. The double no shields on that Spiritomb. Wild calls from my opponent, but it pays off as it wins them the game. We move to the next match, picking up a pretty nice lead, Shadow Milotic into Tyranitar. Now, normally the Tyranitar is Shadow and the Milotic is not, so with the Shadow status flipped, the matchup should actually play out the same way. My opponent always has to shield here, and I'm expecting they will go for a catch. So I switch when I get the move, and I get the call right, as my opponent tried to catch the Aqua Tail onto Seaking. Seaking, probably going to be firing off Icy Wind or Mega Horn here. It is going to be the Icy Wind. However, even with debuffs, Hyper Beam is still a Hyper Beam, and Seaking is not the tankiest Pokemon around. So I fire off the Hyper Beam, it connects, and that is devastating damage onto Seaking. Seaking tries to CMP tie the Licky Licky, but I'm more than happy just to let myself get KO'd by Mega Horn in exchange for farm on Furret. Furret energy is going to be very good into the Tyranitar. In comes Tyranitar, and they'll fire off energy right before I make the Brick Break. This game all comes down to a prediction. When do I go for the snipe? I have the Aqua Tail banked. I think sniping immediately is too obvious, so I'm going to stay on the field, switch into my Milotic, and I didn't see a catch. That means this Aqua Tail is guaranteed to land, KOing Tyranitar. In comes Miltank, and I should be in a winning position. But unfortunately, I'm not able to make the Hyper Beam. I was hoping that I could get there, but my Milotic just did not have enough energy. And suddenly, the path may not be so clear, because this Miltank has so much energy. Miltank goes for the Body Slam. I know that I do survive the next Body Slam, but if my opponent ends up full sending an Ice Beam or a Thunderbolt, then I could lose the game. Brick Break is going to get them low, and now the moment of truth. Do they full send? I say no. We call it. It's the Body Slam. Furret farms down, and we escape with a win in a very close game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, leading my Milotic into Dragalge. My opponent safe switches into Seaking. Now, if Seaking is able to land a Mega Horn, this is going to do some pretty devastating damage. So I put up the shield. It turns out they're actually running Drill Run. They're not running Mega Horn. So I definitely could have let that go, but fear of Mega Horn prompted a shield. We land the Hyper Beam, and that damage is absolutely devastating. They send in Spidops, I pivot into Licky Licky, and with Licky Licky's pacing advantage, I'm able to fire off a Body Slam, and they're already pretty close to half HP. They're going to lunge and more than likely look to pivot out of here back into the Dragalge, so they are able to land the lunge, and I'm just going to keep farming, watching for the switch, and the switch just never comes. I was expecting a switch out there, but they just stay on the field with the Spidops. Spidops will be able to take the knockout, but that works out pretty nicely for me, as I was able to get a shield away from the Spidops and almost all of their HP. Now I can just send in Furret. Furret looking for a farm down, not going to get there as they're going to make it to the lunge, and lunge is going to be getting Furret pretty low. Now, a debuffed Furret is usually not particularly threatening, so my opponent shouldn't have a reason to shield this, right? So I go for the Hyper Beam connects, in comes my Milotic, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We've got a very tough opponent in the next match, as I'm battling against M.E. Weedle, a 2022 Pokemon Go World Champion. The lead is pretty neutral. Battle a water type, Shadow Milotic into Seaking. I respect the Mega Horn just to get Icy Wind baited, and that really does not feel great. However, what's not going to feel great is this Hyper Beam. I know it's debuffed, but Seaking, not the bulkiest, Hyper Beam lands, and they get KO'd. In comes Licky Licky. I'm going to look to bank a ton of energy and then pivot into my own Licky Licky. This way, I can save the energy, reset that attack drop, and I'm confident that my Milotic energy will be better elsewhere. My opponent is going to be spamming out Body Slam after Body Slam in this matchup, but I'm pretty okay with that. I'm just going to look to farm up, and I may as well go for yet another Hyper Beam. I already landed it once. We've had a couple games where we landed 2 Hyper Beams, but Weedle, he reads the team, he puts up the shield, and suddenly, this could get a little bit difficult. Body Slam will not knock out here, but he full sends the Earthquake, and now I have to decide, do I bring in my Milotic? I say no. I actually bring in the Furret, because Furret will be able to absorb this energy, and again, I can hold on to that Milotic energy for the end game. In comes Drapion, and now's the time for my Milotic to shine. My Milotic has so much energy. Aqua Tail is going to land already at Aqua Tail number 2. My Milotic ramping up the pressure on the Shadow Drapion. Aqua Tail will be shielded. My Milotic trying to make it to the Aqua Tail, but Weedle's counting is pristine, and he will not let that happen. My Milotic does get knocked out, back in comes Furret, and I believe this is only enough energy for an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to connect onto Furret, there's the switch into Licky Licky, and the bad news for me is that Brick Break will not take the KO here. I'm going to have to go for the Hyper Beam. So I throw 1 and the Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is going to be erasing Licky Licky, and then it's going to be a race to the move. Down goes Licky Licky, back in comes the Drapion. It's going to be a race, but it's a charge attack priority tie that I do not win. I did not farm up enough energy with Furret to outpace. What a close game, but unfortunately, that's a game that we're going to lose. Hopping into the final match, Shadow Milotic into Spiritomb. Spiritomb was such a nightmare for this team to deal with. I feel like the vast majority of the losses that I took with this team were because I ran into Spiritomb, and Spiritomb just absolutely destroyed any hope that this team had. My opponent ends up throwing on alignment there, maybe thinking that my Milotic had 3-2 pacing, but it does not. It is 3-3 pacing. And getting a free Dragon Tail is really, really good for Milotic, because Milotic is just going to output so much pressure onto Spiritomb. Spiritomb has gotten Milotic pretty low, but Milotic is already at another Aqua Tail. The Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. Milotic is going to be, oh my goodness, almost sniped down. Spidops trying to farm down with the Bug Bites, but they're unsuccessful, and now Spidops will be answered with Licky Licky. My opponent already spent both shields, and that means you already know what comes next. Licky Licky, even at -1, going to be going for the Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam connects, and that's going to be getting Spidops deep into the red. Spidops barely able to hang on, but I'm more than happy to let the Licky Licky go, because now I can get an energy head start as I send in Furret. My opponent pivots. Their final Pokemon is revealed to be Licky Licky. I farm up a ton of energy with the Furret. I have to decide, do I go for the Hyper Beam, or is Double Brick Break the way? I'm going to go for the Hyper Beam. This is the Hyper Beam team. So we're going to be full setting the Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam connects onto Licky Licky, but it does not take the knockout. Licky Licky so bulky, able to withstand that damage and connect with another Body Slam. Milotic has the Aqua Tail to knock out Spiritomb, but I can't survive a Sucker Punch. So when they bring it in, I wait the turn, throw the Aqua Tail, and it ends up being a CMP sack swap. This means that, importantly, I did not take the Sucker Punch of damage. It was absorbed on the Furret before I swapped. Aqua Tail will take the KO. Back in comes Spidops, but one quick attack from Furret snipes down that Spidops, and that is a good game. And now, let's talk about the result of the team. This team, I started off playing at 3160 elo and ended up going 11 wins and 14 losses, which I feel for triple Hyper Beam starting in the 3100s, actually ended up going pretty well. I think I could have gone positive if I played better today. Unfortunately, there were a few games where I just let win conditions slip away because I just wasn't on top of my game. But all in all, getting to land this many Hyper Beams was a pretty fun experience. When it comes to building future teams, I definitely want to make sure that I have at least one Pokemon that's a good Spiritomb check, because Spiritomb absolutely bullied me all day. I feel like the vast majority of the losses that I ended up taking with this team, there was some kind of Ghost type, which is pretty understandable because my Licky Licky, with the moveset that I was running, was completely useless into Ghost types. If I tried the team again, which I think I'm probably unlikely to, but if I tried the team again, I might consider running a double nuke Licky Licky, just so that way I would have some kind of coverage into the Frostlasses of the world and the Spiritombs of the world, maybe Shadow Ball Hyper Beam. I don't think that's the greatest moveset that one could run on Licky Licky in this cup, but considering the team constraint of needing to run Hyper Beam, I think it probably would have worked just a little bit better. The Pokemon that I do want to highlight though was Shadow Milotic. Even with Shadow Milotic not running Wrap, which would have been helpful in a lot of circumstances, the bulk of Milotic, the incredibly fast pacing, I think this is probably one of the most slept on Pokemon in this entire meta. Milotic was an absolute terror, and there were many games where the bulk and the pacing of Milotic were what carried this team to victory, as well as some games where I landed some very clutch Hyper Beams, but I really feel like Milotic more than anything ended up being the anchor of this team. Straight 3 pacing to Aqua Tail is so fast, and with the bulk of Milotic being able to just absorb hits and allow you to reposition, I think it's a very slept on Pokemon, and my lesson from any of this today is just that Milotic is an absolute beast in this Championship Series meta. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.